I'm John Vito, and for the last 20 years, I've owned restaurants. 5 years ago, I was diagnosed with chronic kidney disease and placed on dialysis. I've put together recipes that I think are both tasty and something I want to make, and also healthy and address some of the very specific issues that us dialysis patients go through. My goal with our program is to combine my years of experience in the restaurant business, the things that I have learned from all the medical community being on dialysis and having chronic kidney disease, and try to present good quality food that you want to eat, and also the information about those ingredients to help you live better lives. Today's recipe is lemon Parmesan pasta. It is a dish I have been making for nearly 15 years, and every time I make it, I'm asked to remake it. Frankly, I think the only reason I get invited back to places is so that I will remake food, and this dish in particular. These are our ingredients we're going to use today. Very, very simple and very few. This recipe will not take you long at all, as you will see through the course of this video. We have some fresh lemons. We're going to use some onion. This is the appropriate Parmesan cheese, and some pasta, good olive oil, and fresh parsley. We do have a little salt and pepper, which we're going to add very little salt, because we know that for kidney patients, salt is a horrible concept. We try to limit that as much as possible. We're going to touch on very specific elements of each of the ingredients that we cook with so that we can do a better job every month. If we can limit those variations in the reports we get, our bodies will work significantly less hard to maintain good quality health. So let's get started with our recipe. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to take an onion. We're going to cut it up and chop it. We're going to add it to our dish. Now, before I get started, you'll see some of the techniques of cutting an onion. Very simple. Cut it in half. Get a nice flat surface on the bottom. You're going to want to peel your onion and get this coating off. And let's see how easily this happens today. Perfect. Cutting an onion, very, very simple. We're going to take your knife and go through, create some some vertical cuts. Take another knife, the same knife, and go through here. And chop right through. You'll see this on cooking shows all the time. I just wanted to make sure you saw how simple it was, even for somebody like us. Okay, any final chops we're just going to get through. Now for this recipe, I'm going to use one whole onion here, because we're going to make a little more pasta than just for one person or for two. If we're going to go through the effort, as far as I do it when I'm home, there are days when I feel capable of cooking, and there are days when I do not feel very good. So I like to make a dish, and then I like to have extras for those days after dialysis, when I just don't feel like I can get off that couch and into the kitchen to cook. And that, to me, is a big help on those days. This is a good onion, I can tell, because even through my glasses, I'm starting to water a little bit. Let's hopefully not cry in the middle of my cooking today. Okay, so we've got our onion all set up. Olive oil, good solid olive oil. This is a fat. Fat moves flavor from whatever you put into it throughout the whole dish. That's why it's so important. There's a good theory out there now that suggests that fat is not nearly as bad for us as once thought. So they used to say that it was we think now sugars are the worst, especially for your heart, and heart is an issue for all dialysis patients. That is a major factor. We have to monitor our cardio issues. Using the fat to transfer flavors from all these fresh ingredients to carry throughout the whole dish will help us limit the amount of salt that we're going to put into this dish. Limiting the amount of salt is another major factor, because salt, when it hits your tongue, it gets it ready to accept those flavors. So if we don't have that flavor throughout the whole dish, sometimes what will occur is you'll add more salt. Salt is bad. Why is salt bad? Salt is going to be bad because it holds fluid in your body, especially for kidney patients, because we can't get rid of that fluid. So by carrying that extra fluid between treatments, you are stressing the entire body. And then when you go to remove it when you're there, that excess process also stresses the body. All of this is bad. If we can limit our salt, we can limit the amount of fluid that we hold, we can feel better between treatments. That's the whole idea, through food. So I've got a hot pan here. I've already warmed it up. You always want to warm your pan before you do that. Everyone will tell you that. Now we add our good olive oil. Now I know how much I'm adding. It's going to be about a half a cup. It'll be in the recipe and you'll get to see exactly what each one of these ingredients adds to those danger minerals in our body: potassium, phosphorus, and sodium. Okay, doesn't take long when your pan is hot. We're going to add our onions. You're going to hear a little sizzle, I hope. Fantastic. Let's turn that down just a little. Now this isn't going to take long. What we're doing here is we're going to take these onions from that strong, eye-burning feeling, and we're going to get it into the sweetness where we bring out those sugars. Lemon. Here we have 2 points of flavor. We have the zest and the juice, and we're going to use both to flavor all this oil, which becomes our sauce. Little zester. Couple of swipes and rotate. Couple of swipes and rotate, because you don't want to go underneath that yellow part and too far into the pith, which is the white part. That's just going to be too tart. Okay, so we can smell it already. You're getting that onion and the lemon in there. It's coming along very nicely. You can smell it. Now, in addition to the zest, I'm going to then slice this and I'm going to add some juice. All right, put this back on the heat. And I'm even going to add a little more oil because I know that we've got to cook some pasta. Okay, so next we're going to take, let's get all our onion, we're going to take our lemon. And for this, I'm going to use 2 lemons, or at least 1.5 lemons for the juice. If you want to avoid getting any pits in there, you can do it by hand upside down, which I will show you. Or you can take a juicing device. There's so many out there. Get your juice in there. And you can hear this starting to sizzle a little bit. And keep that cooking. Okay, now I want to get that lemon juice in there now because I want to be able to infuse the oil with the flavor of the lemon. So I'm going to add it and try to make sure none of these pits get in there. Okay, so now we're just going to saute that a little bit and get that reduced and infuse all of the elements that we have pushed in there together. The next 2 ingredients are going to be the Parmesan cheese and the parsley. But you do not want to put your Parmesan until you take this off the heat. The heat to the Parmesan is going to remove some of that flavor, and that's what we don't want. Let's talk about Parmesan cheese, one of the main ingredients in this dish. We're going to break that down. We have a translation of the word Parmesan cheese here, as you know it, the Parmesan, the word. But it has no legal meaning, so it can be made with anything. They'll say Parmesan cheese as an ingredient on the label, but that doesn't really mean it's just Parmesan cheese. It can be anything because there's no legal written rule. England has a rule that says if you claim it to be Parmesan cheese, it has to be from the region and Parma that they make this stuff. Most often what you do is you go to the store and you buy that little green or red container and you think you're eating Parmesan cheese. Not so much. In that little container, they have something called cellulose. Cellulose is a vegetable fiber. That fiber can be made from anything, but most often it's made from wood pulp. Don't ask me why, but we have wood pulp. I don't think that's very tasty and I don't want to eat it. And for kidney patients, anything that is outside the core main ingredients, natural ingredients, our body has to filter, and we don't filter so well. Because it doesn't have such strong, wonderful flavors, you're going to use more of it. Using more of that is also going to be bad for us because we don't know what all those things are. The next one that we use is that grated Parmesan cheese you find in a little container, a little shake. It says it's pre-grated and pretty fresh. But unfortunately, they use a few other things in there too. They use the cellulose and they also use something called anti-caking, just so that it doesn't bulk up. Well, I'm fine. My doctor says that I don't need any anti-caking and I don't cake at all, so we're just going to leave that out too. And that brings us to that brick cheese, which is called Parmigiano Reggiano. You might see things made in America, you might see things made somewhere else, but if you look at the list of ingredients, you're gonna see that even on that block sometimes, there's all these other ingredients, none of which seem natural. And when you put those in our body, CKD patients, we have to filter it out, and we don't. And that's why dialysis can be very difficult and why our numbers go up on those monthly reports. So you need to find, unfortunately, the very good quality Parmigiano Reggiano that comes from Italy, and because that has such wonderful strong flavors that will allow you to use less salt in your dish because it has such strong flavors. And the less salt in our meals is good for the body, as we've explained. So while we're sauteing our olive oil, onions, and lemon, we can add our pasta, which should take between 8 to 10 minutes to cook. Today we're gonna use a little fettuccine. I think this one goes, a long pasta like fettuccine is gonna go really well with this dish. So that's why we're gonna use that today. Normally recipes tell you that you should add salt to the water so that you can flavor your pasta, because it's the last time you can get your flavor in there. Unfortunately, for kidney patients, salt is just terrible. So we're going to add our flavoring and salt through the very wonderful Parmesan cheese that we discussed. That's where we're going to put it in there. We will add a little bit at the end. We can add a little there, but this is just going to help us reduce some of the salt in our diet, which, remember, reduces our fluid retention. All right, our onions and our lemon and oil are come just about perfect, and I'm gonna add a little bit of pepper here, because that's not so bad for us. Okay, we are just about ready. Our pasta is almost done. Our sauce is nearly perfect, as I can smell. We're just gonna add those few extra ingredients that we need to finalize this. And the first is fresh parsley. Now we're gonna take as much as you feel you're comfortable with. It's wonderful. It adds a nice color to it and a nice freshness. Keep in mind, it also has a little lemony flavor, which is perfect and with our dish. The final thing we're going to do is, once I turn the heat off and I add that, add the pasta, we're going to add the Parmesan. And we want to do that at the last minute, and we also want to shred it, as late as possible. Okay. Now we've got some color. Give that a quick stir, and that'll infuse in there with the heat as well. Now, I think most people are familiar with the idea of taking their pasta, using a colander and dumping it out, and then adding that to your dish or pouring sauce over it. I'm not a fan. I prefer to add the pasta from the water directly to your saucepan and cook it finally in there. You'll see a lot of recipes and a lot of cooks do that. It also helps infuse some of the flavors from the dish into the pasta as it's not fully cooked. That, again, reduces the need for salt. So I've got my tongs. I'm gonna let it drain a little bit and add it right in. Look at that, we made it. As you can see, the heat is still on the pan. It's gonna sizzle a little bit, and we're gonna stir. The nice thing is you can figure out how much pasta you need, because you may not need it all, and you can reserve the rest for another dish during the week. Those days when you just can't get off the couch or the chair after treatment, and we all have them, and they're horrible, and we know it. And this is a way to subvert that. All right. I think we've got just enough. We're gonna add a little more pasta in here. And you can see as you stir it up, the oil is coating the pasta. It's gonna fully cook right in there and add that flavor. Time for our Parmesan. I'm gonna turn off my heat. I'm gonna give it a quick little toss, get that oil in there nicely. Now, because I've already got some started, I'm gonna add that. That is barely a few grams of Parmesan. Now we're gonna add another few right into the dish. Heat is off. You can smell that. The difference between this and those other Parmesans is really amazing. Heat is off, as I mentioned. Most often you'll find that recipes tell you, especially for kidney patients, to limit your portion size to about 2 ounces. I'm going to provide you with some details about what exactly is in this dish and the amounts of phosphorus and the amounts of potassium and the sodium. But when I make this, I eat about 4 ounces. I don't kid myself. There's no chance I'm only eating 2 ounces of this because I enjoy it so much. I finish it off with even more, even though it's got some sodium, because we haven't used much so far. A couple of sprigs of fresh parsley. If you want to get a little crazy and impress some guests, how about a little lemon? There, pasta Parmesan, and good for kidney patients and delicious for everybody.